Hi everybody and welcome back to another video. In this one I'm going to be talking a bit about the Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury fight, which in one word is just embarrassing. It's embarrassing to boxing, it's embarrassing to sport, and why I think it's such a ridiculous idea and why it's embarrassing to boxing is because at the end of the day these two guys are new to boxing. One of them is becoming a boxer, but the other guy was basically a couple of years ago just making a living off posting clips on YouTube. As soon as he stopped doing that, he turned to boxing, he turned to another avenue, and now he's suddenly this hot shot in boxing. I just think it's an insult to all those people, men and women, who've been boxing from like 4 years of age, who can't get a break. And the fact these guys have the audacity to turn around and say, I'm not accepting a £1 million fight to fight this guy, I want more money. I think you should get more money when you fight more credible boxers, more credible athletes who will give you a tough challenge. And when I think about the Tommy Fury versus Jake Paul fight, on paper, one will easily win over the other one. Well, you'd hope so anyway, because of course Tommy Fury is part of a boxing family, essentially. Boxing is in his blood. Mate, you're fighting a guy who's only had 4 professional fights so far, and this guy made a living off posting clips online. And this is what I think is even more frustrating about something like this, is that it's essentially Love Island versus YouTube in a boxing ring. That is literally what this fight is. In fact, I know that the tagline for the fight is "One will fall." It should be reality star versus YouTuber or something like that, or Love Island versus YouTube or whatever, because that's essentially what it is. And I know we've had athletes who crossed over and fought boxers before, of course, like the Floyd Mayweather-Conor McGregor fight, but the fact is, Conor McGregor is an athlete, but Jake Paul's a guy who became a boxer after his YouTube success. When you look at the resume that they both had so far, I respect that the fact that, you know, they're both unbeaten, you know, they're relatively early into their careers. When you look at Tommy Fury's resume, he last faced a guy who's fought 13 fights and lost 13 times. I know it's about learning and I know it's about development, but you also need challenges, and I'm just not sure he's getting that with Jake Paul. Just because he's a celebrity who's a millionaire and he's got online presence, he's got Instagram followers and all that jazz. But the fact is, how well can he box? And his legacy in the future could be something like, my hardest fight ever was against Jake Paul, a guy who was best known on YouTube. It's almost like if I turned around and said, you know what, I want to box for £1 million just because I've got 1,000 or 1 billion subscribers on YouTube. Because of that, I think I'll be good at a boxing fight. I'll be good at putting a pair of gloves on and punching someone. I mean, to be fair, for someone like me, I can barely throw a punch, let alone take one. And it's just insulting that these guys are using boxing as something to build a name for themselves without actually showing any true credibility in the sport. And it's insulting to all those fighters who've been doing it from a young age. And I just think if these guys, particularly Jake Paul, can get into a boxing ring, I just think, you know what, why can't the average person from Manchester or London go onto a football pitch in a Champions League final? That's just how I see that, because that's how it's built up. Just because someone's famous doesn't automatically mean they have to go to something else. They've got to prove that they are good enough for it. Maybe he will be in the future. I'm not saying he's not going to be good in the future, but I'm just saying at this moment in time, it's just an insulting and ridiculous idea. And even Tommy Fury's family, especially his dad, John Fury, has come out and said, even though he's probably kind of half joking and half not joking, he should retire and he should just totally change his name if he loses to Jake Paul. And that is the risk that Tommy Fury is going into this, because he might actually underestimate Jake Paul, given the expectation of his family name and who he's related to and just his potential as a boxer. And if he loses to Jake Paul, I think it will probably be the most embarrassing thing in boxing. I'm almost intrigued to see how this fight pans out, because I think I might potentially be underestimating Jake Paul in this, but I just wanted to just rant about the ridiculous idea that it is pretty much a YouTuber versus the Love Island star, who happens to be the brother of the current heavyweight champion of the world. But that's what I think it is these days. It's not really about being a credible sportsman. It's more about being an online presence with about 1 million followers on Instagram, and it's about being on television. And when you get those two things together, you make money, and therefore that's why they've chosen to fight in the ring. The idea is insulting. The idea is an embarrassment to boxing. It's an embarrassment to sport in general, in fact, and I think it will be something that will be an eye-opener in terms of whether Jake Paul will really pull something out of the bag. I'm not saying it'll be a masterful performance that he'll end up being world champion, but it might be something that we might be surprised by in terms of his performance. But because it's Tommy Fury and he'll have his brother in his corner, he has been training hard for the fights that he's been taking part in over the past couple of years. He should win that fight. I can't see anything but a Tommy Fury win in this fight. I can't see anything beyond that. But if it does, and Jake Paul somehow actually beats him, he should hang his head in shame. He's got a lot more to lose in this situation, because if he beats Jake Paul, he can say, oh, he beat this fantastic star, he beat this guy who's known on the internet, who's a YouTuber, who's only four fights in his whole career. But how good is he as a fighter? He needs a challenge, and yes, I know he's learning, but maybe he will get that real big break and that real credible fighter after about 10. But they're building this up like it's some kind of Tyson Fury, AJ fight, and Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather fight, or even like Mike Tyson and Lennox Lewis many years ago. But I just think the sport in general, that it's all about making money these days, and there's almost no line anymore in terms of what constitutes being a great athlete in what you do. About working hard to achieve your dreams, about putting the craft in, about making the sacrifices for yourself and for your family. But I just think it's them taking this for granted. And because Jake Paul is now a boxer and he was a YouTuber, I'm doing videos for YouTube, so in future you might see me doing boxing. Maybe that'll be as valid as Jake Paul doing boxing. As unlikely as it might be, I think it's just ridiculous, to be honest. I know Tommy Fury can do better than this, and maybe if they fought in 10-15 years time with a bit more experience, then it would be built up as some kind of Pacquiao Mayweather blockbuster fight. But at the moment it's just not. It's just two guys getting in a ring just because they're known for being on TV and the internet. And I think the build up to this fight will actually be interesting, because you'll have people who are fans of both Tommy Fury and Jake Paul who will come and watch the fight. So when you look at the other side of the coin, maybe it's a marketing strategy as well for boxing to get people interested in the sport more, because of the two guys who are well known on the internet and television. So that could be potentially the other side of the coin in the argument in this whole scenario. So what do you think of the Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury fight? Do you have the same views as I do? Are you looking forward to it? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, if you did go on to enjoy this video, then please hit the like button and subscribe for more, and have a notification bell tick so you're notified when I upload a new video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care, everybody.